welcome to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And this is your show for local information on real estate and finance, certainly what matters to you. And Mike, this week, let's get into how to find that next home. And that can be for, the house that we want to live in as a home for the foreseeable future, as well as how to pinpoint that right neighborhood that's right for investment,
yes.
Right?
That's what I want to focus on this week, is not so much picking the home for itself, its value potential and value appreciation potential, but picking the neighborhood.
Right.
And there are key things that investors will look for when they are picking a home or picking a property to invest. So some of those telltale signs, they're not always readily apparent, but they're there.
So you and I can
we're going to delve into some of those.
You and I can throw out words and maybe to the every person, those words may not have the same meaning as they do to you and I. And so the term investment or investor, I think we should be clear that if you're buying a house for yourself or for your family, that should be investment, and the value and the appreciation should be top of mind as well. It doubles as both an investment. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's the person who wants to buy and flip, because that's become quite popular in the last decade or two, buying and flipping for short-term profit and gain. There's buying and holding, but renting it out as a investment property that pays residuals or pays a recurring income. And then there's also buying for yourself, right?
Yes.
Buying for yourself and your family.
And in that last category, there's still subcategories, because I know people who will buy and live in a home and purposefully move every few years to take advantage of the equity that's built up in the time they've been there, to either take from that, use somewhere else, or maybe to upgrade what they're living in. And I've seen people trade homes 2 and 3 times into nicer and nicer homes, and really their month-to-month costs, because of the strategy they use and the appreciation in each property over time, their month-to-months remain the same over that time. Yeah. So that's a great thing to do.
I'll tell you something, Mike, I'm not a fan of reading the headlines when I hear those who are legislators who say, the time has come for Canadians to stop looking at their home as a retirement vehicle or an investment vehicle. That is the biggest load of crap I have ever heard in my entire life, and here's why. There's a gigantic difference between, folks, it's time for you and I to stop being irresponsible with our finances. It's time for us to stop using our home as a get-out-of-jail-free card to pay off our bad credit card debts or our overspending
I agree with
habits.
that. But
absolutely, I agree with that.
But what I would
tell people that they shouldn't be using their home as an investment vehicle is ridiculous.
I would challenge that statement by telling those people to go and look at the Forbes Fortune 500. Look at the top 100 people on that list. And I'll bet you in each and every case, real estate plays a major part in their portfolio. It's diversified among other things, but real estate has played a significant role in wealth building, for not just for the Warren Buffett's and the Fortune 500, but for the average everyday person. It's offered. If you can put $20,000 to $30,000 down into a house and reap a $100,000 return over 5 years, that's a lot better than that money would have done for you if you placed it anywhere else.
I'm going to throw a jab out there, Mike. I'm going to throw a real jab out there, and that is,
bring it on.
Citizens of Barrie, citizens of Canada, be mindful of who we elect, right? Because just because somebody has a platform, somebody has a television show, somebody has
getting political on us, Arif.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because we send somebody to Ottawa or Queen's Park, how much of their resume did we actually scrutinize, right?
Wow.
Like, they're the ones who are giving us advice saying, don't use your home as an investment vehicle. Well, wait a second. I mean, did that come from your business school background, or did that come from your...
advancing, and doing well in your job and your investment suddenly became a shameful thing.
Shameful thing, exactly.
And I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to that. I think we need to take care of everybody and offer hands up all around us, as, Warren Buffett, what does he say? Something about a good boat, or when the tide comes in, raises all boats.
Rises all ships.
Something like that.
In a rising tide.
I ruined it, but there's a good saying, if done right, it sounds good. Yeah. But back to the subject at hand, and if you look at neighborhoods that evolve, Barrie is in this kind of pre-perfect storm mode right now, I think, because there's a lot of older homes at a certain age, like homes built between the 50s and the 70s, a lot of them with original owners, and these are people who may not have done updates to those homes. but they're in neighborhoods that where you could.
Gentrify and
gentrify
rehabilitate.
and
So bottom line though is, Mike, it doesn't matter what the season, it doesn't matter what the financial or fiscal season, whether we're into a recession or out of a recession, there is an opportunity not to take advantage of other people, but to be prepared to respond in that opportunity,
well, demand
regardless
is high.
of
If you look at Toronto, there's certain neighborhoods.
Great examples.
Riverdale, Leaside, Cabbagetown, Parkdale. There's all kinds of neighborhoods that if you went there 70s and 80s, even into the 90s, you would have thought, these are kind of sketchy neighborhoods. Demand and increases in prices in the GTA precipitated the ability to start turning these places over. Landlords who are maybe, sorry to use the term, slumlords, they get out when they start to see the prices rise. Someone else buys, but they see opportunity by revamping, bringing it
Absolutely.
up. Then neighboring homes
20 years
start
ago,
doing the same thing, and there's a domino effect that occurs, and neighborhoods change.
Yeah.
We'll get into detail on specific neighborhoods in Barrie towards the end of the show, and where there's examples of that either underway or yet to happen here.
Well, great segue, Mike. 20 years ago, we're going to go to break, but 20 years ago, if you looked at Riverdale, Parkdale, Cabbagetown, all of that, nobody would touch it. You couldn't buy them for $150,000. You couldn't give them away.
And now these are the key
Today, they're
places to live.
Pristine, they're the up and coming, the trendy. Bear in mind, so has the cycle of our generations, right? We've got the millennials, we've got the people who are, technology has allowed people to commute. Not commute, but telecommute or work from home, right? So when we get into the next segment coming up right after this break, let's get into, before looking at specific neighborhoods, let's go into characteristics that people should be looking for. All right, perfect, excellent. Stay with us on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And before the break, we were sort of setting up what residents of Barrie and surrounding area should be looking for in our local real estate landscape in terms of neighborhoods. What's that next neighborhood that's going to be hot, where it's the right time to get in now, even though we might not see it at its cusp. It's ramping up.
It's not at that peak, and from an investment perspective, buying in that perfect neighborhood, it's at its peak, where its prices are already at their highest.
Then it's too late.
Doesn't make sense.
No,
you want to get in where that evolution is underway.
You gave us some great examples, though, down in Toronto, Mike, of neighborhoods that 20 years ago nobody would touch, and today they're absolutely prime and pristine. And what does that have to do with Barrie, Mike?
Some of the things that happen there are beginning to happen here, and these are, again, the key telltale signs that investors will look for.
Take us on a journey.
I'll just kind of bullet point go through them. If you find regions where you see that the municipality's investing, they're updating the parks, new sidewalks, widening the streets, if there seems to be an interest from the municipal level, then one of two things is happening. Either the planners themselves are seeing that into the future in their crystal ball, or maybe just kind of as a reaction, it's time to fix that area up. And one repercussion of that is the neighborhoods themselves will start
let me
to
give you an
clean up.
example, actually, because
so look for those areas where there's a lot of.
Down on Yonge Street towards Manette's Point, you've got the McDonald's, you've got the Midas in there. There's an area called Foster Drive, right? And there are still a few neighborhoods in Barrie, inside the built boundary, that are still on well and septic. And the province has mandated, if you're inside of the built boundary, you will have municipal water and sewage services. So interesting on how you time it. If you time buying a house that's still on well and septic, that tomorrow or next year is going to be upgraded to municipal water and sewer, you are going to foot that bill. You're going to pay for it, right? So that's a big chunk you're going to take on. Make sure you take that into consideration during your negotiation. If you buy it just after, I'm not going to say you're going to get it for free, but anticipate that cost will be built into the sale price of the house.
And then some. And if you buy it before, you may be able to save that cost and then some, the other way. So, it depends on how you're looking at it before or after, but you want to know that.
Well, you're going to pay for it in a few ways. You're going to pay for it because of the actual upgrade. You're also going to pay for it in the fact that you might be looking at a year of construction in your neighborhood. And if you're looking at this as an investment, is it worth that sort of inconvenience
But
to you
keep
to
in
have that
mind,
upside.
these are homes that, along with every other home in Barrie over the last 5 to 6 years, have doubled in value.
Exactly.
We have equity in this town now that didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago. And with that, overall, you're seeing people in a better position where they can borrow against that equity to invest in their properties and increase the value of their properties. And when people are doing that, that's driving up neighborhood values too.
Let's frame this just a little bit. I think it's really important because more often than not, you get into conversations with people, and I don't think people are saying it out of ignorance. I think they're saying sort of like as a sigh, you know, I wish I was that lucky and I'd known to invest at X point years and years ago that I would have been all of a sudden sitting on a gold mine.
Every
and
20 years, everybody can
It's
say
not
at
luck.
any time in history, I wish I'd bought 20 years ago. And 20 years from now, they'll be going, boy, I wish I bought in 2020 when I could have got a detached house for $400,000 to $450,000 in Barrie.
Right. Are you
Can't
willing
say
to
that in
plan
Toronto
ahead?
anymore.
Are you willing to sit maybe a little bit humble for a year or two, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be while we go through that cycle? Are you willing to go in while you don't have to put a bow and showcase and do an open house and a housewarming party and everybody drools over your home. If you're looking at it from an investment side, you go in quietly, because if everybody's doing it, you've missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
If you go in quietly when no one else is doing it, people are going to go, wow, you were lucky, right? And you're going to go, yeah, I was lucky. I sat on this for 3, 4, 5 years and I bought it when no one else wanted it.
And I knew where to invest the money in.
So
in
tell
the
us about
property.
some more characteristics.
Looking at the data indicators, and don't look for like the leading edge numbers, like the highest price homes, the homes that have appreciated the most in the last few years. You want to study those a little deeper and look at the ones that where that action is just starting to happen over the past 2 or 3 years, where the year-over-year prices are starting to increase. The days on market are starting to shorten a bit, and then catch that early on. Like if you look at some neighborhoods, that's happening. Other neighborhoods, that's already happening, and you're late to the party. So look to see where your timing is in getting in there when you study those.
So again,
the
decide
data.
for yourself if you're looking to have something where it's move-in ready and everyone's done the work, and you essentially unpack your boxes and you live in your home. That's great, good for you. You're going to enjoy the beauty and you're going to enjoy the conveniences, etc. But someone else has earned the upside on that. Somebody else profited from their labor of renovating the home for you. Don't expect you to get sort of the cake and eat it too kind of thing, right?
Another thing to look forward to, and this is, I wouldn't say it's specific to, but it's more likely to be seen closer to downtown cores, where because cities over their history, they started at their core and they progressed outward. So at the center of that core are the older homes. But if you find the old century homes, the stately stone and granite and brick homes, and we have many examples of those in and around downtown Barrie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they fell out of fashion. They were built by captains of industry back at the turn of the last century, and they proudly showed them off. But over time, they ended up, a lot of them, as rooming houses.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see a transition, because it's happened in some of those neighborhoods in Toronto that we talked about, where these properties, again, there's kind of the absentee landlord owns a lot of these properties, and they see a bit of a value increase. Now's their time to get out. They know the property needs work. They're not going to do it. They just want to capitalize and get out. The next person who buys in there is the one who's going to invest. And maybe they see the opportunity to turn into like a boutique hotel or higher end, nicer condos or apartments. So when you see those transitionings taking place in some of those big old homes, like on High Street, Toronto Street, in the downtown area, Parkside Drive in Barrie, I should say, then a lot of the neighboring homes around there.
So let me put it into a nutshell for you then. I think that's a great point, Mike. I would say look for the area that is just on the outside of where all the action's happening, right? Because things will move out.
Yeah, within or in proximity.
Oh, yeah. But if you're within, there's a good chance somebody else was looking at it a few years ago and has already bought it up. So you might want to be just outside of that, because it's going to creep towards you. But here's something that's interesting as well. From an investor's perspective, if you're buying or owning or looking to sell an investment property, you don't want to just look at the property itself, but and I know this is a separate show, but you're also going to want to look at the major infrastructure items in the home. How old is heating and air conditioning? How old are the boilers? How old are how old is the roof? How old are the windows? Because sort of at a 7-year point is when things are going to start to go. They're still working in their prime. You're going to want to get out before they hit 10 years, and you have to start replacing all that stuff.
Well, that's part of your evaluation, but there's opportunity with that too. And again, those investors who don't want to invest any money into the property, that's when they're going to sell. They know I can still get $1 for it before it burns to the ground, because it doesn't have proper wiring or swing. But you can capitalize and take advantage of that. I'm going to need to do all that. I'm factoring that into the price I offer. And ideally, you know, for every dollar I'm going to invest in bringing those upgrades around, I'm going to make back 2 or 3.
$1 something on it. Yeah, exactly. Let's go to break, Mike. When we come back, I'm going to test you on a couple of neighborhoods locally. I've got some characteristics I wanted to run past you as well.
Sure.
So stick with us on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. We're talking about where's the next great place to buy in Barrie. Talk to you soon.
Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and we're talking about up-and-coming neighborhoods, places to look that are going to have great potential, either as a place to live or a place to invest, or hopefully both. And a couple points just to wrap up from before the break. One of the things I would say to look for is areas where there's development, either residential projects that are slated, or just improvements or new commercial, maybe a rec center, library, anything that's going to improve the area is also going to add value to the property. You had a couple things you wanted to add too.
Sure, and I think there's a different perspective from somebody who's definitely going in as an investor and wants to buy, so they're going to do a land assembly and they're going to buy. Well, they're a few years out and they may be sitting on that property for a number of years until the city planners get caught up or until the marketplace is right. But as an individual buying a home for personal use or for investment use, I think you want to look at, most importantly, foreshadowing, or forecasting, right? What is the market going to need, right? So for example, where's our population at in terms of age, in terms of health, and generationally, right? Are we going towards a senior-centric community? Are we going towards young professionals? Where are those groups or categories of people who have their own interests, whether you're arts-related interests, whether it's profession interests, whether it's retirement interests, where are those people moving into what neighborhoods, and what do they need? What attributes do they need?
And so just as important, are those demands being met?
Are those demands being met? For example, are you looking for a bungalow? Are you looking for a walk-up? Are you looking for convenience to mass transit, like the GO? That type of thing. You want to have that in consideration.
Sure, different demographics will be looking for different things. So getting into the neighborhoods specifically in Barrie, the first one, of course, we should touch on is the downtown core of Barrie, because many of the properties in that, if we want to call it a single neighborhood, kind of check all the boxes on what we talked about before. They've got the older century homes, they've got the close by commercial. We're seeing upgrades and development and new residential coming into the core.
Right.
That's an evolving city. There's a lot of properties that are tired down there, that have but they're good solid properties, have the potential to improve and increase over time.
Well, keep this in mind though as well. Are you buying for yourself, or are you buying for investment? Are you looking to have a single family dwelling? Are you looking to build a duplex? Are you looking to build a multiplex? Some of the properties in the downtown core and in the east end of Barrie, for example, they're large properties, right? They're typically smaller homes. Some of them are large and stately homes sitting on a very large footprint. So important. You better make sure your realtor or you yourself has gone to the city and said, you know, what are the restrictions in this neighborhood? What is the zoning in this neighborhood? Where are my setbacks? How close to the lot line can I go, front and side and back, right? That's going to be really important if you're looking to change the footprint of the house.
A couple other areas I would suggest is Old Allendale, Gowan, Cumberland, Holgate, Burton Avenue, all the intersecting streets. Again, older homes, good solid turn-of-the-century homes there. Many of them have been updated, but there's still many more that you could probably get in for a good dollar. And if you put the investment and the sweat equity into it, you can turn them into a really sweet piece of property down there that's going to give you a great return and a great living environment for the time you're there.
With that in mind, for those of you who are watching, get to know the neighbors. If you're looking at a neighborhood, find out, is there a neighborhood association or a neighborhood community? Because you better believe they are strong advocates for their neighborhood. And many of them have historic designations or heritage, maybe not designations,
which is
but
going to influence
characteristics.
what you're able to do.
You better believe that the neighbors are going to want to protect their area, and so they should. Sometimes it's legally protected, and sometimes not, but just a matter of influence. And they want new neighbors who are going to come and enhance and beautify, but not necessarily, you know, wholesale change their neighborhood.
No, they don't want to see the big monster homes coming in totally replacing
Can you blame them?
the heritage and the culture that's there. No, I don't. Exactly, especially in those key neighborhoods. Now, there's areas I would say between along Innisfil Street, either side of Ann Street, going from either side of Ann Street, going from Bradford, or Essa Road, I should say, over to Dunlop.
Yeah.
That whole corridor parallel to Bradford Street. A lot of older homes in there, decent-sized lots, a lot of opportunity, and we're seeing it underway now, some of the revamping in that. But the values there they're still undervalued in my opinion. Similarly, along Wellington Street and a few of the streets to the south of that, between Wellington and Dunlop, a bit west of the downtown, there's opportunity there again, older homes. And the other thing I think is key too that a lot of people may not realize is a lot of the subdivisions that were built between about 65 and 75, Allendale kind of plays into that. There's a lot of neighborhoods where there's homes that are good solid homes, but they're now 30, 40 years old. A lot of them maybe have the original owners in them still, have never been updated. Maybe they've been maintained, but they still got the shag carpet and the swag lamps in there and the original owners. And a lot of those owners are moving on. They're heading into seniors living. There's a lot of estates in that, but there's just a lot of opportunity for homes that are just waiting for someone to come in, buy it for a decent price, and then put the magic into that home that's going to turn it into a nice modern
Yeah, well,
home
some
with
people are
modern
saying,
kitchen and bath.
hey, my home is close to transit, my home is close to the lake, I'm going to get a fortune for it. Well, compared to what you paid for it, absolutely. Really important, though, for people to realize that two things are happening that I'm noticing. One is that you're having people generationally come back. Kids grew up, they went off to university or college, they went off to start a career, maybe down closer to the GTA, and they've decided, I want to start a family, and I'm coming back, and they're moving right back into their childhood neighborhood, sometimes a childhood home. Otherwise, people are looking at saying, hey, listen, you know what? I'm not looking to tear down a house. I don't want a new subdivision.
People may not have the time or the patience to do it.
I want to renovate. And there are people who are doing a really beautiful job at keeping the facade or keeping the original home, but because they've got the depth or the width or the size of property, they're maybe doing a very tasteful addition to the house, maybe creating a second unit or a second suite, but they're doing it so that it blends in with the character of the neighborhood. There is a way to do that.
And there's a lot of people still, maybe for lack of time or knowledge or just fear, are looking for that turnkey home. But something I would say is you're going to pay far more for the turnkey home than you are to create the turnkey home. And you'll learn something along the way. HGTV is going to walk you through it all. So
and you'll have your house renovated in half an hour.
In half an hour, right after the break, you come back. So, you know, it's fun, and I've seen a lot of people who've done it, never done it before, and come away from it and go, that was exciting, I want to do it again. And then they've done it again. Well, and then they've done it a third time, and now they're sitting on a little real estate empire, and their retirement's all figured out for them.
I would encourage people at this point, Mike, to do something. Probably the best piece of information or guidance that I could provide is before you make a hasty decision, before you do go it alone, definitely put together your vision board, put together your want list and your need list and that kind of thing. Ideally, if I could have everything the way I wanted it, this is how it would be. But before you go put up your own for sale sign to get out of your existing home, or before you go and put an offer on somebody else's home that you're looking to buy, definitely get together with a mortgage broker to see where you are with equity, to see what you're going to need for down payment, to see what you're going to need for programs that are purchase plus improvements, but then also definitely speak with your very well qualified real estate agent or broker to make sure that you're getting the good guidance as to many of the things, the items that we've talked about on this show today. You definitely want to make sure that you're getting good guidance, getting good knowledge before you take the plunge. You want to go in prepared.
And you want to talk to people who have done it themselves before, who will be able to share their mistakes or their lessons that they've learned and give you the good advice, and crunch those numbers and do it well. Don't do it with any bias. Always be conservative in your estimates going through, and you'll get through the other side.
And we are out of time, and we hope that this show gave you some good insight, good knowledge. We're going to see you next time on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.
Thank you.